Hello, welcome to Tuesday Live. I am Omini Odan. Nigeria is believed to be on the right track of development and growth, especially in the last 4 years that is anchored on good governance. The present administration, many say, has achieved a lot with its campaign promises of security, anti-corruption and the economy. This is evident with the articulated programs that have helped the country get out of recession and scaling up the economy. It is on the record that the country has witnessed 8 quarters of positive growth in the economy, and its GDP is expected to grow by 2.7% this year. The feat is expected will be consolidated in the next level agenda. Already, the government has pledged commitment to, among others things, restore economic growth, curb inflation, and revive ailing industries. What efforts are in place to encourage foreign direct investment? How supportive are Nigerians towards government developmental programs, particularly its request to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years? Answers to these and more tonight after this flashback report on ministerial inauguration by Jide Onifade.
Clear now on where the election is heading, and the new ministers have all promised to work with the president in achieving the next level agenda.
It's a rich menu, given the fact that the ministers have been very carefully selected and deployed. Nigerians should expect quite a lot.
It was a top secret, and of course, until Mr. President revealed, nobody knew what they were going to get. We want to lift people out of poverty, so we'll begin to encourage our people to add value to the minerals.
It's a duty that we have to, ensure that we keep in line with the expectations of the people.
We need to cooperate, collaborate, and work as a team. And that's what we are going to do. There's no way out of it.
It's an enormous responsibility, and we'll do our best. We will seek the cooperation of everybody, whether it's the National Assembly, the governors, everybody, the people of Nigeria in general, wherever we can reach, because this is a task that cannot be done by one segment of governance.
The last 4 years, we had a roadmap, a 15-year roadmap on how to restructure and reposition the ministry and the sector, the water resources sector. And we are going to continue with that roadmap. But of course, in the last 2 days, we have been informed that there are additional priorities of government, and there will be key mandates that will be given to us. So we have to take all those and also key into them.
The Senate screened the ministerial nominees, then ministers today, and we found them to be worthy of being appointed ministers, people of great capacity, experience, and loyalty.
I'm confident that the President had examined all attributes before arriving at this conclusion, and we fully support him.
There is no doubt that before the federal ministers is a huge task, but as observed by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, with teamwork, commitment and hard work, the task is surmountable. Nigerians expect the ministers to hit the ground running, and that they have promised to do. In the State House, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
High hopes, expectations, and one would say it translates to work, and work. 4 years of next level agenda, governance, and the economy is the focus of Tuesday Live tonight. And that throwback by Jide Onifade sets the tone for the program tonight. At some point, the lines will be open and we'll receive calls when we get to you. Turn down the volume of your set and go straight to the point and make your contributions or ask your questions. And my team of guests will be available to address the issues elaborately. Also, the Twitter handles will be opened, and when you send in your tweets, we'll read them out and we'll also respond to them. Well, my guests, starting from my immediate left, I have the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, Ajuri Ngalale. Good to have you on Tuesday Live.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. Professor of Economics, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Professor Mohammed Mutaka Osman. Good to have you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Ni Akinsiju, economic analyst and chairman, Buhari Media Organization. Good to have you on Tuesday Live tonight.
Thank you so much. A pleasure.
Well, and I want to take the shot from you. 4 years of next level agenda, governance and the economy. And not to say it looks a huge challenge. You heard what the respondents there said. Like I would say, for you to grow, you must read, and read. For you to progress, you must research, and research. And for the next level agenda to be delivered, 4 years on, work, no excuses. So to achieve this, what do you think is the way forward?
I think already the work has been done. Some of us that were part of the politics to the 2015 election and post-election were more fearful of the fate of Nigeria going forward in 2015, because when you look at the statistics were worrisome. You know, there were all indications that we were headed for the storm. You know, by 2014, last quarter 2014, and of course the values at play in the environment at that period too was not exactly ennobling. In terms of good governance, there were a lot of issues, you know, a lot of confounding issues in the public space. So for me, the fact that this government could come in 2015, and yes, we inevitably went into a recession as predicted, but in a most unconventional manner, we exited recession. We went into recession when we went to recession together with Brazil, together with South Africa, a quarter after Turkey. And we came out of recession before all of this. In fact, Brazil is still struggling with its own recession, you know. And we didn't use the normal, what they call the Bretton Woods idea, the Bretton Woods guides to exiting recession. We created and evolved our own homemade, you know, policies and guidelines to exit recession. And because of that, we have now, you know, I always describe it as getting into a valley, moving out of that valley to the plateau, and then growing. So now, thankfully, however you want to put it, we are on a growth trajectory. And the fact that the global economy itself has issues. The fact that our domestic economy itself is not exactly flourishing, but you have a government in place that is giving it direction. That is the difference. And I think that is what we need to appreciate most about this government. The application of unusual policies, you know, that had to be pushed by strong will and determination and honesty is what has been driving the economy, as it were. Nigeria had been a perennial, what I call a prevalent poor state. And you can start counting from 2003, when we first had our first statistics on poverty prevalence in the country. By 2003, we had 100 million Nigerians living on $1 a day. At that time, the World Bank, that is responsible for defining or for measuring poverty and establishing the poverty line, it was $1. Through to 2015. By 2012, we had 120 million Nigerians living on $1 a day. You know, by 2015, you know, the standard, the poverty line was increased to 1.90 cents. Now, what I'm trying to say is, by 2016, 2017, we are already seeing reduction in the poverty population, in the poor population, extreme population in the country. So when you start looking at this, what you can arrive at in terms of conclusion is that we've had a government that has been able to steady, you know, the stormy weather, more or less, that we were into. We have stabilized, the government has stabilized the economy. We now know the next step we are supposed to take. We are out of we are out of chaos. We are out of crisis. There's no way we can describe our situation as crisis, you know. For today, GDP results were made public. We are still on the growth path. It may be relative, but we are still on the growth path. When you also look at even big economies, China reporting 4.0 from their normal 6.7 and all that threshold. UK reporting less than 2%. US reporting less than 2.5%. We are, given our situation, we are doing extremely well.
Beautiful. Prof, growth trajectory, unusual policies, all to reflect the economy, strong policies, reduction in extreme poor population. Technically, what would you say? And also give a generic picture of the global economic space. Where would you say technically is the Nigerian economy right now, based on what he has painted? He gave a scenario.
Yes.
So give us the technical look now.
Yes, as a researcher, you know, we deal with two issues. One, what the data said, and also how do you speak to the data? And the third thing is, how do those data relate to real life situation? That is the philosophical underpinning of the data. Yes, he said, come out of recession. Yes, of course, you come out of recession. And extraordinarily. To some extent, yes. But basically, when you look at the economy, it's still fragile. It's still fragile in the sense that the driving force of almost all economies in the world is production. It's production that you will take up people out of joblessness. It's production that will put income on the hand of people. It's production that will motivate active demand that will put industries back on the wheel. So all this, when you just oppose the situations on the ground and also what you have as statistic, you might find out there are some areas where you can say thumb up, and also there are areas where you need to do more work. Some of the areas that I felt that, yes, there is no economy in the world that develops without strong human capital. Okay. And therefore, if you look at the investment in human capital in the last 10, 20 years, is very poor. Take, for instance, education. It ranges around in the budget cycle from 9 to 11% highest in the last 20 years. And if you take that also and put it in the square of population, for instance, it's estimated Nigeria to have 195 million people. And 60% of that, about 148 million, are under the age of 30. So it means you need more investment to take these people where they can transfer their energy. And therefore, it means there must be expansion in the education sector. And expansion means you need to more investment. In their agenda, in their manifesto, they said they will allocate nothing less than 15% of their budget to education. That's, to me, is good start.
Okay.
But have they achieved that?
The next level is just taken off.
Yes. No, in the first 4 years, is part of the next
Beautiful.
level.
So let me take that to the man on the side.
So what I'm trying to drive at, for instance, where I know best, that's the education sector. For instance, in the last 3-4 years, people who aspire to be in the university, that is through JAM, they took about 2.1 million kids apply to various spaces in the university, apart from those A-levels and also other direct entries, diploma and the rest. The entire, about 3 million in a year in a session, the carrying capacity of entire Nigerian university, including whatever the so-called private sector, provide only 700,000 spaces. So automatically when you look at these statistics, you know there is a problem somewhere, because every year you drop out 1.3 million guys that want to enter the university. That does not stop only on education, it expands on health. For instance, a country of 190 million people, the training capacity of Nigerian universities for doctors is only 2,000 per annum.
When you refer to guys, I hope you mean both the male and female gender.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, let me hold you.
So at that level, let me land on this, that if you look at that, if you move the economy, you move people who will run the industries. You will be shut up, you will outsource. When you outsource, you are giving other people jobs. And look at the health sector. How much do you address? Yes, but when you look at it critically, by coming out of recession is one of the things that, yes, you can say, yes, there is purposefulness. Things that you can give it to them, the present government, is just that impunity of lawlessness in terms of government administration is no longer there.
Okay.
That's my take.
I love that. Now, let me take you to the man on the saddle. You heard the scenario painted by Nii. You heard the scenario painted by Prof.
Yep.
Now, let me paint it this way. Governance promised to timely delivery on the governance targets that would bring the next level agenda alive in the lives of Nigerians.
That's right. You know, first of all, you know, one of the foremost questions that I get when I interface with Nigerians, whether it's in a store or wherever I find myself.
In the marketplace.
Yes, in the marketplace, on the street. They'll ask you, they'll say, look, you know, I'm hearing a lot about the next level, but what can you tell me about the first level? Because I'm not sure that I understand that you know, what actually occurred within the last 4 years, that you're now going to a next level. And I think Nigerians, I would ask our people this evening to really take stock of where we were when this administration took over. You had a currency, our currency, the Nigerian naira, falling off of a cliff with rapid speed. It went from 158 naira to the dollar throughout most of the last, say, 10 years, from about 2010 or so. And by the time this administration took over, it was at 190 going into 200, and then we saw what happened from there. Ultimately falling all the way down to 520 naira to the dollar before it eventually came back to 360. You also had a situation where the foreign reserves were at a low that we hadn't seen in decades. You had $26 billion foreign reserves, so you couldn't even have a kind of a buffer, because most nations like Russia, when they had issues with sanctions over the Crimea, they used about $400 billion in external reserves to be able to bolster the value of their currency. We had 26, so we couldn't. Therefore, you saw the president now ban about 41 items in terms of Forex in the central bank. That ensured that we stopped the slide and that we're able to actually accumulate reserves, and eventually after some time, we were able to stabilize at 360. I'm saying all of that just to show that we're coming from a very significant deficit. That is not even starting to talk about the fact that across sectors, whether it's road infrastructure, rail infrastructure, power, education, as he mentioned, you name it, environment, defense. I mean, of course, we all know about the corruption that was going on around the country, across sectors. When you're coming from that kind of a deficit and you don't even have the funds to be able to build yourself out of it, then you know that you're going to have to do quite a bit of work. Now, with that said, first things first, the coming out of recession was not a miracle. Yes, Mr. Akinsiju was very correct in stating that we were able to evolve some homemade solutions to some peculiar problems. How did we do that? The president made unprecedented investments in infrastructure. We saw that in the 2016 budget, at a time when we did not have money, we had to, of course, source for some external borrowing to fund that budget. We did about 1.1 trillion in the first budget on capital cash releases on infrastructure. In the second budget, 2017 budget, 1.6 trillion. Combined in those first 2 years, 2.7 trillion naira was spent in actual cash releases on infrastructure, the highest in our nation's history, at a time when funds simply weren't available. So when you're focusing on infrastructure, you're not just building the infrastructure to attract foreign direct investment, you're also building infrastructure because it's labor intensive. So you're putting young men who are unemployed, young men and women who are unemployed out on the roads, building our roads in some of the companies all around the country. We know that sukuk bonds were taken out, 100 billion naira in sukuk bonds were taken out to do about 26 road projects across geopolitical zones. So even the employment generation within the construction and services sector was being done in a way that was well spread across the country. You had that on the one hand. On the other hand, of course, the administration of the president took a strategic undertook a strategic move to move, of course, away from oil into other sectors that are more labor intensive and less capital intensive. And of course, that takes us to agriculture. What many of our people may not know is that from 2015 to 2018, the federal government of Nigeria was able to save the nation $21 billion in food imports. As of today, the count is up to $24 billion from the time Mr. President took office in May 2015 from food imports alone. How did he do that? By putting the strategic bans in place and by capitalizing, by adjusting the fertilizer market in such a manner that we reduce corruption, we have been able to revive 14 fertilizer blending plants in conjunction with the Moroccan government. We've been able to recover 10 rice mills around the country for rice production. Through the anchor borrower scheme under the Central Bank of Nigeria, we've been able to put more money in the hands of farmers in a direct fashion, removing the middlemen. That has enabled a scenario in which we have been able to reduce food imports, rice alone, by 97%, milk by 81%, fish by 99%, sugar by 60%, and wheat by 63%, all in a span of just 4 years. We've been able to do that, save that money, and apply that to infrastructure, and that's what we've been using to fund our budgets ever since. The last point I would want to touch on, because I know we're going to be able to get into all the sectors, and I'm really excited to get into the next level, but I need to set the stage with the first level, is this. From 1960 to 2015, what we had was a max total of 13 million Nigerian taxpayers. In 55 years, 13 million was the best we could do. From 2015 to 2018, not even 2019, 2018, the President Muhammadu Buhari's administration has been able to escalate that number from 13 million in 2015 to now over 20 million taxpayers. That is 7 million additional taxpayers in only 3 years between 2015 and 2018. In 2018 alone, we had the highest revenue generation within the Federal Inland Revenue Service in our history at 5.3 trillion naira. That's how we're funding our budgets. And I think these are the steps that have been taken that have brought us out of recession, and now we can now build on that in the next level. I'm looking forward to getting into that.
Beautiful. I love the tone we have set. Mm-hmm. It was like a dialectics that flowed. Mm-hmm. Now, you took off with the fact that at the end of the first term, most Nigerians felt the change matter was not practically or fundamentally concluded. And suddenly they hear next level agenda. So moving on, let me stay on Professor Muhammad. Since the next level agenda is time bound, it's already counting. It's a countdown already.
Yes.
What type of changes can realistically be achieved in the next 4 years, given the huge picture we have all painted? You identified key issues. You talked about the challenge of human capital development, which was not more or less shot up. He has given a huge picture. next level. So what areas, if we have taken up to this point, we expect that we should go this way before we start settling down? So.
Yeah, I think that the most fundamental thing about economics is that it's full of fluctuations. So therefore, you must be critically evaluating all your policies, fine-tune them, and therefore, what is absent in the last 4 years, indeed, is the coordinations of policies in terms of the fiscal side and the monetary side. And therefore, they are working in silos. What am I saying is that the essence of...
Are you saying that the agencies were not properly coordinated?
Of course, because they are not coordinated in the sense that the structure formed by the government is the one that coordinates all those fundamentals. For instance, if you take an economic advisor, he sits in the council. Therefore, he transcends all the economy, all the ministries in terms of if you take a policy on industrializations, how does it affect trade? How does it affect productions? How does it influence education? How do it help agriculture? But that is missing in the first 4 years.
What happens to
What happens is that the Ministry of Finance, which is the dominant place for fiscal policy, is more or less on looking at, because to be honest with them, when they come in, they were faced with recession. So their focus is not just to dig and start going, but rather they have to address the situations. Because since 2014, we have been writing that this economy is in trouble. Better address it. And by finishing the election, they hand over.
That's what I'm saying.
The wahala.
What specific areas do you think in the next 4 years, given what we have identified, with the mandate given the ministers, what should they drive on?
They should
because
drive
it's time-bound.
Two things. Yeah. One, to see how they will generate income and reduce poverty, because the level of poverty need to be addressed. This can be done only when you generate employment, and when you generate employment, you generate income, and by the time you generate income, you alleviate poverty. But the only thing that you should try to coordinate, because when I saw his inaugural speech that we are taking out 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years, I said it's a good target. But the only economy that did that was China, 700 million in 10 years. But what do they do right and where they have gone wrong? The first thing is to have a coordination. One, for instance, you don't have shaking hands between research and policy, and policy and enabling environment. Because if you take China, fundamental economics is built in what they call triple helix. All policies that are going to be implemented in China must go through rigorous research from the universities and research institutes. By the time they come with the figures and everything out, they hand it over to the government. And therefore the government, for their own policy, will base on very knowledgeable position to take a policy that will leverage the private sector, and the private sector will come and invest and generate income, employment, and wealth.
Lovely. That leads me to the question I want to give to Nii now. We saw an induction retreat. Ahead of it, policy documents were issued to ministers designate, and they had an effective retreat before inauguration. And shortly after inauguration, they had the directive, let's have your vision on a mission in terms of the mandate of your ministry. As we speak, most of the ministers have put out theirs, and it is more or less like clear. I'm saying this because you talked about there was lack of coordination and a lack of synergy. But would they take off of the current team comparatively? What would you say, tied to what he said?
With respect, I want to take a position a bit away from distinguished professor's position on coordination, especially. As I noted, the government inherited a chaotic position, 2015. And somebody asked me, if your house was burning, what do you do first? I said, I'll first go look for a fire extinguisher. I said, but while you are looking for it, the house would be burning. The only choice I have then would be to use my bare hands, and the house will get burnt, and I will also get burnt. So the first thing you needed to do was to go look for a fire extinguisher. That was what government needed to do at that time. And whatever you needed to do, stabilize the economy, take us out of recession, and let us start growing. And I think to a large extent, it was a coordination between the executive, the fiscal arm of government, and the monetary authority of government, as represented by the CBN. And so to a large extent, I've seen a lot of coordination. I've seen a lot of handshake conversation between the fiscal authority and the CBN, the monetary authority, to the extent that some people are even saying, some critics are even saying that a lot of fiscal policies or activities have actually been portioned out, to the monetary authorities, especially when you look at the interventions of the CBN. They are more or less fiscal. The anchor borrowers program, in different forms, even the restrictions and all that have fiscal undertones for them. So I think there is that coordination. The basic problem with our economy, the Minister of Finance, I just said it, is revenue. And it is historical. I like to always put my position on a situational benchmark. What is our current situation now? We don't lack ideas, we don't lack direction, but we lack funding capacity. We are coming from an economy that historically are dependent on a single mono product, and it's vulnerable to whatever the temperament of the global market is. And to that extent, we must take time to start looking inward. And if you track what the administration has been doing over the years, you can see activities of looking inward. Like you noted, by restricting access to foreign exchange but for products or things we can produce in Nigeria, what you are doing is to activate production line along that line, because you reduce competition from outside your jurisdiction and try to protect your activities within your economic activities within your jurisdiction, and of course allow momentum for this. And that's why we can talk of rice. We are talking of near self-sufficiency in fish production, in some other products too. Now, for me, going forward is to create momentum on what we have been doing. The ministers have been given what we call key performance indicators. It's go and bring your own agenda, tell us how you want to deliver. That's what the president had done. And I think that is good. It's given the ministers capacity, allow them discretion, let them also see let them tell us how they are going to deliver on this. But what is clear, I am optimistic, because the last 4 years was the most challenging years for this country. What is clear now is the momentum is gathering up. The last time FIRS gave us figures, it shows that we are earning more, we are collecting more taxes from non-oil sectors. You know, it tells us that we are moving away from what was traditionally our bastion of income, the oil and gas sector. You know, now we are doing for more than 49% of non-oil sector collection, tax collection. We only needed to enlarge productive capacity. Again, we have traditional deficit in our infrastructure that would help drive this productive capacity because it is situational. We have to look at things as it were in 2015. How many kilometers of roads were motorable as of May 29, 2015? As of May 29, 2015, how many universities, tertiary institutions, were amenable to good learning? Between 1999 and 2015, how many times has tertiary institutions gone on strikes? These are the historical that I like to reference, you know, and then we start comparing. What have we done since then? Have we moved despite the challenges of the period, despite the challenges of revenue, despite the challenges of decay in infrastructure, despite the challenges of human capital development? What was the base of human capital development in 2015?
Okay, thank you. I love that. Income generation and reduction of poverty. Now, let's go into the next level agenda. It's taking off from job creation, youth empowerment in Nigeria. So far, where do you think it should be with the next level agenda?
Well, certainly when we talk about job creation in youth...
We are bending backwards too much. Let's
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
So where we are as of today is obviously with the social investment program, currently 500,000 Nigerian graduates on the N-Power scheme. That's N-Power Build, N-Power Creative, N-Power Agro, N-Power Medic. There are several strands, N-Power Education. There are several strands of it. We're escalating that to 1 million over the course of the next 4 years. That is the next level of N-Power. So you're going to see more investment in that regard. You're also going to see an escalation of the homegrown school feeding program, which obviously has been an unprecedented investment by President Muhammadu Buhari's administration over the first 4 years into feeding 9.8 million children as of today across 32 states of the Federation, which will increase as time goes on. The next level of the 9.8 million school children is, of course, 15 million by 2023. We expect that to enhance enrollment rates with its attendant impact on the education sector. In addition to that, we all know about trader money, farmer money, market money. We know that that has touched the lives of 1.7 million Nigerians in the first 4 years. We are going to escalate that into an initiative which I think all Nigerians this evening will be very interested in hearing about. It is called the People Money Bank. The People Money Bank is going to be open to all comers. Every Nigerian citizen who is running a small-scale operation, a medium-scale enterprise, is going to be eligible to access up to 1 million naira in interest-free loans. I'm talking about hairdressers, car mechanics, plumbers, carpenters, tailors, farmers, market traders. Everybody combined is going to be able to access that money. Of course, it's going to be on an escalating scale, just as we did trader money. So it's not going to start at 1 million. That's the ceiling if you've taken out lesser amounts and faithfully paid it back and built up to that. We're also introducing an initiative in the next level called, and I want to make sure this is clear, People Money is for 10 million Nigerians. Up to 1 million.
People Money Bank?
Yes, People Money Bank is for up to 10 million Nigerians. Now, the Skill Up Nigeria project is going to be a voucher system that this administration has put in place over the next 4 years. We're going to work with private sector organizations like Dangote, like Unilever, like Flour Mills, some of these other organizations that have basically set global global standards in terms of their conduct, in terms of their practices, we're going to now send Nigerian graduates and Nigerians who have not graduated into some of those private sector organizations in exchange for a voucher. That voucher is going to be something of a stipend for those who are being trained, and we're going to ensure that those who train their new hires are going to get up to 1% payroll contribution deduction, so deductions on their payroll tax of up to 1% if they train these new hires. Now, after this period of skilling up, as it were, is completed, they now go back out into the market where they can now access the funds in the People Money Bank, for example. We are also bringing into play a $500 million innovation fund. Already in the first 4 years, the President Muhammadu Buhari's administration has set up innovation hubs around the country, which has taken unemployed but creative Nigerian youths, whether they're graduates or not, and have trained them in skills around robotics, coding, animation, design thinking, group thinking, etc. What we're going to do now is with these funds, we're actually going to be able to pay them similar to NPower, but it's not NPower, so that they can build on their innovations, and then we're going to establish, separate from the People Money Bank, one more thing, sir. Yeah. Separate from the People Money Bank, there's going to be an entrepreneurship bank, which is going to be for young Nigerian entrepreneurs, particularly in the creative and ICT sectors, so that they can access funds and build businesses.
Okay, I just wanted to interject. We have this caller from Lagos. Christian is calling in from Lagos. Hello, Christian. You're on to Tuesday Live. Hello?
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 Hello, you're on. We can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead, Christian.
Okay. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm listening to what you guys are discussing. Okay. Are you with me?
I'm with you. Go ahead. You're on.
Okay. Okay, like what the president coordinator is talking about food suffering in Nigeria.
Christian, go ahead. Go ahead and turn down the volume of your television set, please.
Okay.
Go ahead. We are listening to you.
I want him to tell me the state where the food provision are being made in Nigeria, the schools.
Thank you. I think he's talking about the scope, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
If he's asking me to list 32 states, yeah. I think the best way is to say that where we are not present, there are a few factors. That's 4 states in the FCT. We're not currently present in the FCT, for example, in terms of the homegrown school feeding program. In states where we are not present, the program requires a level of contribution and cooperation on the part of state governments. There are some state governments who have not shown interest for various reasons. Some say political reasons, some say there may be other reasons in play, but I don't want to speculate on that. But for whatever reasons, some state governments have refused to cooperate with the federal government on this program, maybe because they don't want federal government to take credit for such an initiative in their states. But we also know that in some states like the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, sorry, of course not a state, but the capital, we are doing the legwork, and we are about to start the establishment of the program and manifestation in Abuja. So that hopefully does answer your question. Okay.
Now, we have a couple of tweets that started coming in, and we'll just take these 2 for now. The first one came in from Aquila Bello. Just a commendation. Frankly speaking, this administration is building strong foundation for prosperous future. But the one that I will leave to all of us to react on is coming from Aminu Suleiman. He says, next level agenda. In Katsina, we want banditry and kidnapping to become history. The new ministers and government of next level should focus on mitigating poverty, focus on industrialization, thereby diversifying the economy and put the nation on the right track for next generation. Okay,
Can I have an opportunity to touch that?
Go ahead.
Please, thank you. You know, one of the...
I want all of you to touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Starting with you.
You know, I was answering the issue of job creation and youth unemployment. Now, in terms of social investment. Now, looking at the sectors, we've touched on agriculture, but moving forward, this is the plan. We're going to establish within the next 4 years, within the next level policy document, 10 agro-industrial zones in every geopolitical zone of this country. By 2023, within these 10 agro-industrial zones, there will be approximately 780 service centers. Approximately 132 will be in the area of raw goods processing, and the other 632 or so will be in 638, I believe it is, will be in the area of mechanization. Now, this is as a result of an MOU that was signed between the federal government of Nigeria and John Deere, an American agriculture equipment manufacturer, upon the meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and President Muhammadu Buhari. That is going to involve the establishment of 6 assembly plants in all parts of this country, separate from the 780 service centers that I've mentioned, that are going to be putting together tractors and other related agricultural mechanization equipment for the use for our farmers. Now, this is expected to create nothing less than 5 million jobs, these agro-industrial zones. Within that, the N-Power Agro Group of 1,000, within the 1 million N-Power staff that we're putting in place by 2023, 100,000 staff are going to be focused in on agriculture. That's N-Power Agro. Now, amongst the 100,000 N-Power Agro, they're going to be equipped by the federal government with data capturing devices. And the whole point of that is they're going to traverse this country. They are going to register every single smallholder farmer in this country. Between 60 and 80 million smallholder farmers in this country and their farms. And the purpose of that is to not only document them, but to also link them up with value additive processing centers and other extension services across the value chain. By interlinking the agricultural sector in that manner, we're going to create a lot of jobs, and we're going to ensure that those agro-industrial centers create a condition whereby we will be exporting massive amounts of food. It's going to include, this is my last point on agriculture, it's going to include 6 quarantine centers in the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. Each zone will have a quarantine center to ensure that there are standards and quality labs that will ensure that the exports are quality exports. So we're not just sending stuff out there, we're also ensuring that there's quality assurance so that our customers and clients abroad will be happy and they'll come back to Nigeria for future exports.
Okay, I'll come to you, Flo. Let's take this call from Enugu. Favor is calling in from Enugu. Hello, Favor. Welcome to Tuesday Live.
Hello?
Hello, Favor. Welcome to Tuesday Live.
Yeah.
Can you turn down the volume of the television set, please?
Okay.
And go straight to the point.
All right. Well done.
Thank you.
I can hear you clear.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. What I want to say is that... Hello?
Go ahead, please.
What I want to say is that minimum wage, they say, is not about tobacco or anything, because some mode of other stations, like all this EDDC, other stations are paying their minimum wage, and other like Chivita, most of others companies. Why can't tobacco pay the minimum wage, whereas there are other people, their staff increment of salary? Because if you get to tobacco people, almost of all them have, even though the lower staff, they are listening like more than the kind of salary you cannot expect it.
Thank you, Favor. I think Favor is trying to take off track. Well, let's continue with the last tweet. Yes. What can you say to that?
That's one of the things I always think about. You know, to address a problem, you need to know what is the problem. If you take about employment, palliative measures don't take people out of employment, but maybe in most cases it abrogates the problem, because maybe somebody he's not getting 5,000 naira, then you start giving him 5,000 naira thinking that he will improve his life, then his hope is raised, then he will start drugs. And so instead of helping him out of unemployment, you now put him in another problem. So all this initiative, I think we should face the reality. The reality is that, look, how do I bring
you're
back
addressing the tweet.
Yes, industrialization back on track? And how do I integrate R&D so that there is a linkage between what is research so that it can be converted for production? These are specific things. But People's Banks existed before and died. And almost all microfinance are just trying to live above.
So are you saying in a way that the People's Bank issue is not realizable?
It's not. No, I'm not. I'm not going to. I'm a curious optimist. I always see Nigeria that is going to the high level, but things that you plan diligently, and that is what is called backward integration, then that will give you a sustained employment level. Permit me to say that, yes, there are so many things put to the table, but how do we monitor it? How do you generate the data that will monitor? Let me give you a practical example. The place I know best is Kaduna State and Katsina State, per se. Katsina has 34 local governments. Out of that 34 local governments, less than 10 have a bank. Less than 10 have a bank. So out of 36, you have only 10 that have existing banks. So how do you relate those initiatives without banking system out? So there are things that you can look at. What is the situations in the country? How do I, for instance, if you take Brazil, when De Silva came in, what is his problem? His problem is out of school children. How do I address out of school children? It's okay, I'll open the land. This is where you make sure your child went to the land and work for the day. We'll pay you for what he's supposed to.
Okay.
So that's a kind of things that will have a synergy of creating employment. But on these kinds of palliative measures, it's not, in most cases, does not deliver. What I'm trying to say is that if you are going to do any policy, make sure that that policy is reliable, accessible, and evaluatable.
So the last line of the tweet says, mitigating poverty, focus on industrialization, thereby diversifying the economy, and put the nation on the right track of the next generation. Give us 2 key points to achieve this.
2 key points there is that they have started infrastructure. Second, you have to invest in human capital. If you didn't invest in human capital, no matter what you want to put in this economy, you are just transferring it to other economies. Because if you are going to build road, you call this guy a Chinese guy, he will do the road for you, but eventually he will repatriate the profit out.
Okay, let's take this call from Benin. David is calling in from Benin. Hello, David. You're welcome to Tuesday Live.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
The question I want to ask, they say we now produce rice and the agro product is now sustaining the people. And the only thing I want to know is why is it that now that we are producing stuff that we are normally importing from other countries. The cost of living now is more higher than before.
Thank you, David. Okay. Let me take you. Okay, Prof.
Well, I will address it.
Okay.
But first, looking at the question on the table, because
beautiful.
I'm going to take it from points, Prof. own position. If you are going to grow an economy,
it has to be about production. And it has to be about production and production. I think what the federal government has done is principally intervention.
Yeah.
And of course intervention is for some time. It's important because if we have more than 80 million people living in extreme poverty, there is a need, for such intervention. It's a palliative to cater for those who are distressed, because if you are living under $1 a day, it's a distress point. It means that you cannot reliably feed yourself. So there's a need for state intervention. I think that's where that one comes from. But I think what the government is doing, especially from the CBN, is revolutionary. Especially the loan to deposit ratio policy. The CBN is trying. In fact, it has started implementing it. That talks to the economy generally. It talks to the enablement of the economy. And the directive to to money deposit banks, is that you must have a portfolio of at least 60% loan to the ratio to your deposits. It is not as if it's so huge, because many banks have between 56 and 57% ratio already. But the truth is that between that 56, 57 to 60% that the CBN requires now, you have about 1.3 trillion naira credit creation, to the productive sector, to the SMEs especially, So what the CBN is saying is, Nigerian banks are scared of lending money to Nigerians, to entrepreneurs, especially to small and medium scale entrepreneurs, But now the CBN is saying, we are compelling you, but also by the end of September, we are going to do a review of your portfolio and see where this money had gone to, and also give higher value to loans given to SMEs. By doing that, you have opened up the economy for entrepreneurial activities. Because what drives productivity is funding in the first instance. You have SMEs that are creative across board, across innovation hubs, across agricultural hubs, across mining, solid mineral hubs and all that. But what they are waiting for is funding. And it's only Nigerian banks that can do this. So if Nigerian banks are compelled by this CBN policy to start lending money to entrepreneurs, it is empowering them and empowering the production capacity and processes. And of course, when you start that, it also means that you are creating job opportunities. And when you create job opportunities, you are bringing in unemployed people into the economic sector, into the productive sector. And that starts translating to suckling out people out of poverty.
From the point you started, Ajuru has been nodding his head, and eventually Prof joined, he's nodding his head. So there's an agreement now. Quickly, before we take a break in a few seconds.
Yeah.
Prof, can you in a few seconds just address David's question from Benin? He raised a fundamental question.
Yes.
We're not importing.
Yes.
Things were cheap. Now we're importing. The things are unaffordable. From the economic perspective.
The cost of production determines the price.
Yeah.
So if the loan he took is high, the high level of interest, and the cost of production, maybe the labor is higher and the machineries are higher because he has to import those machines. So that will account. the second thing, the second thing is that
we're going to break for in a few seconds.
Yes.
Brief, yeah.
The second thing is that we are not sure of the value of the production.
Okay.
It means that we have to go back and look at the data again. If it means that the value we are calling is not up to that level, there must be a palliative import, which hitherto we don't look at it. Now we close the border, so it chunked up the market, then the price, but it will come back to stabilize as the price will come down.
No, I just wanted to add, this is a very important point, is the smuggling. Obviously, external market forces, if, for example, they're smuggling rice across the Benin-Wa border, then of course, whatever we try to do internally is going to be affected by the inflow of imported rice that should never get through the borders. So I think that has more to do with the interference in market rates than probably any other factor.
Okay.
I think we should also look at depreciation. You know, these mills are just being acquired.
Yeah.
You know, and the cost will have to be spread over the first generation products.
Okay, beautiful.
You know? So
well,
naturally,
a couple of tweets have come in, but at this point, we'll take the tweets just after the break. Once again, the focus of Tuesday Live tonight is 4 years of next level agenda, governance and the economy. So far, it's a build-up, and we'll take more calls and more tweets when we return. Stay with us.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying tuned. And tonight we are looking at 4 years of next level agenda and governance and the economy. Before we went on break, a couple of tweets came in, but I take the tweets and quickly take the vox pop by Nigerians. And the first one says, thanks for your succinct presentations during the program. Slowly but steadily, we'll get there and faster growth with time. That's coming from Shitu10. The other one, Victor Hansen, says, congratulations to our jury, that's you, on his new position. It speaks very well of the next level agenda. I'm happy to know that we got minds with good plans. My question is, how is the government planning to track achievements in terms of implementation and set targets? How do the people monitor progress? We'll address this question because Tuesday Live has a character. It's an audience interactive program. We took a vox pop from Nigerians on the streets on this issue. Let's take a listen.
Actually, this government has really pushed so many people to do what they think they cannot do. The last tenure that they ran, they were talking about agriculture. Of a truth, they've really made people to go into that agriculture, and people are really doing something good about it.
The Empower project is working to a certain extent because I have people that are close to me that have been beneficiaries. And if we have to think of it, you know, for a system to be tried, you have to give it a time. You understand? But for the fact that it's working, in long run, it will have effects. Because those who have been taken out of markets, labor markets now, you understand? They will return to it.
When there's stability in power, a lot of business will thrive. For instance, all these hairdressers, barbers, other artisans like welders and what have you, they need power to carry out their duties, right? But without power, it will hamper the growth of that sector. Because of the epileptic kind of power supply we've been having in the country, it has adversely affected the economy, tremendously. So for us to really make progress regarding power sector, there's need for the ministers, the government of the day to be on their toes. The economy will thrive. Nigerians will feed themselves, and robbery, kidnapping, and other banditries will cease.
Well, we are looking at many things from the government of President Muhammadu Buhari in this second term. There are a lot of expectations. The expectation is high. And what we are looking at, even as a cocoa farmer and as a number one cocoa farmer in Nigeria. I believe that there are a lot of potentials in the agricultural sector, especially cocoa, and which I believe the government should look into, because we must be looking at industrializations, and if we are looking at industrializations, we must look at the raw materials, and that's where agriculture comes from. And let me also tell you, you can't remove agriculture from the economy. When you are talking about the economy, you are talking about really agriculture, because agriculture takes care of about 70%. And when you are talking about the employment, then you must talk about agriculture. Agriculture has a potential of absorbing about 70% and create about 70% of the employments we are having. So what I'm saying in essence is that when you grow the economy through agriculture, then you take care of the problems we are talking about. We must definitely applaud the government for making Empower and for creating employment for thousands of our unemployed youth.
Power program, I've been able to train other children in school, and I think it has really helped.
Reactions there by Nigerians on the next level agenda and possible areas that should be touched. Hope not lost. Expectations, expectations, expectations. Now our next leg will be on the issue of infrastructure. That's starting with power. But before then, the tweet, let's say thanks to Shitu for commending the program, but the tweet from Victor Hansen raised two fundamental questions. How is the government planning to track achievements in terms of implementation and set targets? How do the people monitor progress?
First of all, let me just say I'm humbled by and grateful for the encouragement from my brother Victor there. You know, when you look at the issue of monitoring and evaluation, I think one of the most understated kind of moves of President Muhammadu Buhari through the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation has been the process through which the ministers have been prepared for office. What we have seen since pretty much 1999 up until now, really, has been a scenario whereby they come into office and they're given their brief, and then permanent secretaries and directors are basically rushing to their offices telling them, this is the bottom line, this is what you have, this is the reality on ground, okay, how can we plan from here? Instead of going through all that process, which wastes a lot of time, what the president instructed, he established the projects, programs, audit committee chaired by Vice President Professor Yemi Oshibajo, which essentially with all the main actors in government, CBN governor, FIRS chairman, heads of MDAs, came together and looked at project by project in every sector, in every ministry, to say what is the status of this project, how much funding is required left, how do we fit these into the budgets, and they came up with a document, and on the basis of that document, they now prepared the documents for the new ministers coming in. So they come in with all the information at the ready to hit the ground running, and on the basis of that audit committee document, they're now able to look at it and say, okay, if we don't finish this project, and this project by 2023, then we have failed the president. The president has laid it out very clearly to each and every minister what it is they must achieve by 2023. So really, there's no gray area, it's black and white for them, and I think that's a commendable stride by President Muhammadu Buhari.
Before I take the next tweet addressed to Nii, let's take this call from Paul. Paul is calling in from Lagos. Hello, Paul. You're on to Tuesday Live. We lost that call. Now, quickly, there's this tweet from MS Liman. Without security, all these will not be achieved. Certainly. The government should do more on security, especially kidnapping and intercommunal clashes across the country.
Yes, it's a profound position. Nobody is comfortable with a state of insecurity, you know. But the belief I have is that this government has shown capacity. And because it has shown capacity engaging security issues over the last 4 years, I know that it will be able, you know, to address these emerging security issues, as it were. One, I like to go back to my benchmark, what had been happening to us before, One, the ratio of our police population to our larger population is low. We have, at the most, we are talking about 370,000 officers and other ranks of policemen to 195 million people. So you can just do the mathematics. And this same 375,000 policemen to a land mass of about 1 million square kilometers. That is a huge real estate you are talking about. Plus, of course, barricaded special characters and all that. So I think going forward is about strengthening our police force, is about strengthening our capacity for intelligence. I can say, because I have this direct intel, as they put it, that we have more than 200 senior police officers undergoing intelligence detective training in China now. Before now, we abandoned our intelligence units. In fact, the CID school was abandoned, before 2015. So and that's supposed to be the heart of preventive policing. So it's unfortunate now. It's unfortunate that it is just now that we are only recalibrating and reawakening all these institutions that are supposed to have been in place. And I always tell people, it is our past catching up with us. That's the truth.
Now, I thought Prof wanted to react to the tweet by Liman, but quickly, Chukwudi Onwumere has sent in a tweet saying, I strongly agree with Prof's view of sustainable development. That is the solution to Nigeria's economic problem. This administration have to leave a legacy of taking Nigeria out of poverty since Nigeria became out of poverty. So that's the tweet from... But let's take this call from Francis. Francis is calling on from Port Harcourt. Hello, Francis. You're welcome to Tuesday Live.
Hello.
Hello, welcome to Tuesday Live.
Yes. The gentleman, the fair one.
Okay, go ahead.
Keeps telling us what they are going to do, what they are going to do. They are going to do this, they are going to do that. This is mere promises. For 4 years, they have been there doing nothing. So is this coming 4 years now that all these things that is really now, that he will do them? He's just using his background as a journalist to bamboozle us. We want a physical result and not a mere promising. Good evening.
Thank you, Francis. Aju, that was
you. Sometimes they say a prophet is without honor in his home.
Absolutely.
I'm from River State, so you never really know who's calling from where. But let me just say.
That was a call from Port Harcourt.
Yes, of course. I meant from the political spectrum. But let me just say that the concerns are valid. I want to remind my friend Francis that we're here to talk about the next level of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. If we were here to talk about the last 4 years, then we would focus on what we have done in the last 4 years, which I think if anybody was watching this program from the beginning would have heard me talk extensively about what has been accomplished in the first 4 years. But now that we're talking about the next 4 years, I can assure you that we want to be held to account for every promise or every projection that has been made on this platform. We want to be held to account for it. We want to say it outright so that you will hold us to it. And we expect that even as we're talking on this platform, that you will be on your phones, with your smartphones, Googling and fact-checking us to see if we are lying about what we have done in the previous 4 years and what we plan to do in the next 4 years. So please, I ask all Nigerians, don't just take my word for it. Fact-check me. Fact-check everybody here and make sure that you hold us to account.
Thank you very much. I think let's speak to power. Power is very, very fundamental here. But quickly, before then, let's take this tweet. Let's read out this tweet from Oludotun. How does the government plan to promote and use the innovative solutions of entrepreneurship within the country? Do we take that before we move to power?
Yeah, I think
When you look at it from the global perspective, countries that dominate the world control three things. One, intense research. Two, media. Three, financial institutions. All the countries that control the world control these three things. And you can't do these three things without knowledge driven. So it is basic. It's not just to say it's okay. It's a diversion to say don't involve yourself into rigorous activity. Rather just use your hand to just do small thing and I will give you the rest. That is diversionary to my mind. But it's like Nee said, it's a palliative for the moment. But going forward, there must be intense investment. That brings me back to the security issues.
Okay.
And it has profound implications on job creations, on investment. Take, for instance, now, the entire Northwest is off of production because the center hub for production in Northwest is Kano and to some extent Zamfara and Katsina. And because of the level of insecurity and banditry, you find out production at whatever nature is not going on. So going forward, I think they should focus more on the security aspect and also join it with the power aspect. Because the power situation, for instance, there is a project somewhere in the Northwest which is going to create about 10 megawatts. I think wind power.
Sokoto.
Sokoto and Katsina as well. But after now, in the last 6 years, it's still down. I think they should fast track it in such a way that it will come up in such a way that it will allow people to go back to productions. Like I always said, if you are in production, then it means you are profiling.
Okay, as much as time will allow us, we'll try and touch on other areas, talking fundamentally on education. But before then, let's take this caller from Maiduguri, Mustafa. Hello, Mustafa, you're on to Tuesday Live.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Mustafa, you're welcome.
Thank you. What I want to say is that I want you to talk based on this security and insurgency that is happening right now in Nigeria.
Okay.
And I really appreciate this program. So, and our new governor, that is the professor, has put more effort to tackle the security to us. And we are very much grateful to Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari and our new governor, Professor Babagana Umar Azulum. So far, we have seen more achievement from our new governor based on the security issues that he wants to tackle to us in Maiduguri. And I want you to say something.
Thank you, Mustafa. Well, I think Mustafa is amplifying what Prof just said. But quickly before, we have to go to power now. There are two more tweets we just got now. Ahmed Habu, is there any plan for this administration to reduce the exchange rate? Because it really has impact on our economy. Two, Apostle Zion Lawal, I am really impressed with the discussions in the studio tonight, but the government should place the newly appointed ministers a time frame to deliver. This way the ministers will work with the mentality of result-oriented rather than non-result minded. Well,
that's the headmaster approach.
Let's speak to power. Power is very fundamental.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, let me just very quickly touch on what my erudite professor has said here, which is the issue of education, what has been done, what is not being done, etc. I tend to disagree with one of his views, which is the idea that if you are empowering people to build cars or build power stations or build roads or build railways, that essentially you're just you're missing the point, because the real investment should be in universities and classrooms. I don't think one is more important than the other. I think both are very, very important to building an economy. In fact, if you look at the global jobs market, you'll find that blue-collar jobs are up to 70% compared to white-collar jobs, which are only 30% in the global market. That's 70 or 80% of the global economy. So putting people to physical work, whether it's agriculture or construction or services, is not a waste of time, and I think that those investments are wise and will prove wise over the long term. But to the issue of education, when you look at education, there are a few things. One, the Energizing Education Program. In fact, just today, they unveiled the largest solar hybrid power project in the African continent at Bayero University in Kano. That's 7 megawatts of power, 11 kilometers of solar-powered street lights, 24-hour uninterrupted power supply for that university alone. Just a few weeks ago, they had done Alex Ekweme University in Ebonyi State. So investments are being made. We've released this administration has released about 220 billion naira through the TED Fund for infrastructure in the universities. That's not including the tens of billions of naira that have been approved for the payment of salaries and allowances and back-owed pensions to academic staff, to ASU staff. So these are some of the things that have been done. But moving to the next level, understanding the economic constraints of the first 4 years and the limitation on funds and the emphasis on construction, now that there are more funds available and we have a foreign reserve that can allow us to invest in education properly, you're going to see in the next level a target. Right now we have a target by 2023. 40,000 public primary and secondary schools will be renovated. Not just renovated by painting walls and putting on roofs, but renovated by equipping them with labs that will ensure that young children into secondary school will be able to engage in robotics, coding, animation, design thinking, etc. in collaboration with companies like Google and Microsoft. Not only are we doing that, but we're also retraining teachers in digital literacy in addition to their areas of primary expertise from where they had graduated. These are some of the things we're looking at. And lastly, you asked me about power. Very critical. I'll be very fast. I'll be very fast. In power, we know that last year President Muhammadu Buhari met with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. As a fallout of that meeting, they agreed that the global engineering firm Siemens, German, would come into Nigeria. They just signed an MOU, I believe it was last month, with the federal government through the Bureau of Public Procurement, Bureau of Public Enterprise. What that's going to do, in Mr. President's wisdom, he has said that we have succeeded in elevating generation in the first 4 years from 5,000 megawatts generation to 7,000 megawatts generation, from 5,000 megawatts transmission to 7,000 megawatts transmission, from 3,500 megawatts distribution, we have not moved. Distribution has been the weak point. So in Mr. President's wisdom, he said, this Siemens deal must, in phase 1, focus on distribution like a laser so that the 7,000 megawatts we generate and transmit will make its way into the homes and businesses of Nigerians. So a 6-month audit has just finished, and the federal government is ready to spend about 273 billion naira on ensuring that all the distribution networks and substations across the country are refurbished and in some cases reconstructed to ensure that they can handle the 7,000 megawatts being produced. That's by 2021, and then 11,000 megawatts in generation, transmission, distribution by 2023. That's the next level.
Okay, we'll continue with other issues now, but let's quickly take these 2 tweets that just came in. Abdullahi Ibrahim, I believe in Nigeria. Next level will be a success. Buhari must be tough on his cabinet and ensure security is addressed holistically by going after various sponsors of economic and political terrorism. That's a good point there. Paul Adoza Omuluabi, power is the live wire of the economy. Corroborating what you said, how best can the government make power sector work like telecommunications in Nigeria? We need more private hands in this sector. Yeah. But let's take this call from Ismail before Neil reacts. Hello, Ismail. Ismail is calling from Maiduguri. You're on to Tuesday Live.
Hello.
You're welcome.
Hello.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening, Ismail.
So, I'm hearing you.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
I want to talk about the business level.
Okay.
Now the regime.
We lost it. Babangida Alkali. Well, the first two words here are not very clear. Are totally inaccessible. Okay, he's talking about two roads, Mate and Abadam, are totally inaccessible for the past 5 years. And it is evident, if properly managed, the wheat might along produce will feed many states, including Abuja. The key that unlocks development is security. We are not secure, you know. Okay, Prof, let me take you on that before I go to...
Yes, you know I'm not a politician, so I will say it how I see it.
Okay.
So
the last tweet.
Yeah. Basically...
Did I call the name properly?
Yes.
Okay, I thought I didn't get it right.
No, that's right. So the most essential thing in economics, or when you are dealing with economy and government, you have to take two in such a way that one robs the other. Once the economy is not doing well, the first question you will ask, why this economy is not doing well? And therefore, what are the machinery to use to bring it back to steam? And it's human endeavor. One, you lose the security, you don't have power, because investment is about confidence. Once you don't have confidence in the nation, you can't invest, whether local or international. Yeah. So therefore, it is important and imperative that despite whatever investment you put, for instance, when we talk about the power, we said the weakest link is the distribution. But when you take distribution, what happened? It's one cycle that some people were gathered and said, take this public property without capacity to handle that.
Yes.
And now, when you come in, you look at it and said, how best can I handle this? Because during the period of privatization, if you take the record of BPE, 70% of privatized company collapsed at the second year.
Yeah, that's true.
So what private sector are you talking about?
Okay. Let's proceed. Neil, let's look at this. As much as we have some visibility and openness in the onslaught on corruption in Nigeria, you still hear people say we still have a litany of it. Some people are still corrupt. But Mr. President is Africa's champion on anti-corruption. Let's speak to corruption. Now, somebody has sent a tweet here talking about the need for Mr. President to be tough and assertive and to give timelines. We'll go to timelines. If we set targets and we put timelines, yet corruption thrives, will it work?
It won't. You see, the unfortunate thing, and I think every Nigerian agrees to it, Nigeria used to be a corruption-prevalent country. It is endemic. That is the only way you can describe this country. And you also have segmentations of corruption. Grand corruption. I think it's the vice president that defined that for us. Grand corruption, where people use the influence of their offices to create contracts and money associated with that contract, collect the money and virtually carry the money in cash and take it away, without accounting for it, without doing anything with it. And you now have system corruption. System corruption is the corruption in our bureaucracy, where officers small level, low level, medium level officers believe that something must be given in exchange for something, to sign a paper, to track a paper, to get normal protocol processes concluded or delivered. Something must be given. So that if you want to collect a passport now, you must pay a premium. You want to collect a license, you must pay a premium. You want to do business with a government office, you must pay. All these things together affect our deliveries and deliverables too. So to the extent of what we are confronting now, the truth is that if we had not had a president with the image of a Buhari, would have actually gone into a vortex. But as it were, there's redemption. And then I can also see a new valve of independence in the agencies fighting corruption. The way AFCC has been going these days, the way ICPC has been going these days, has been strong. But I think there's a huge need to keep talking to Nigerians. We have a misplaced sense of entitlement. And when the people have a misplaced sense of entitlement, it translates to misusing offices. Even for those who are not in office, they expect you that you are in office to exploit your office, for your gains and for their gains. I want to imagine how many congratulatory messages Ajuri would have received
my brother.
since he was appointed SSA, because if you will get calls from 30 years ago, somebody that had not called you over the last 30 years,
course, yes.
The moment your name was announced, would call you, "Oh, my brother, how are you? Don't forget us here. Oh, we are still here."
That is it. Yeah, I said it all. Okay.
So the truth is that it has become so endemic, and it has become near a culture. So it is not something that you fight just by institutional fighting. It has to go to changing our outlook, changing our orientation, for us to know that when 10 naira is taken away from government purview, it affects service delivery to millions of people.
Okay, let me take your perspective.
Yes,
if I go to Prof.
The anti-corruption issue is obviously a big one. I just want to start from this. One of the first moves I remember in 2016 was the establishment of a committee under the National Economic Council chaired by the Vice President, in which the Vice President chaired a committee on revenue generation organizations, government-owned enterprises that generate revenue for the country, from 2010 to 2015. That's the customs, that's NEMASA, that's NPA, that's JAM, the FIRS.
31.
I'm sorry?
31.
31 of the agencies.
Yes, 31 of the agencies, yes. And so in looking at those agencies, we found that between 2010 and 2015, Nigeria lost $21 billion did not make its way into the Federation account. We know that since 2015, Customs has generated an average of more than 1 trillion naira every year for 4 years. I mean, you break that down into dollars, you do the math, you know that's a lot of money, and just customs alone. NPA in the hundreds of billions. NEMASA approximately 22 or 25 billion in between there. JAM about 8 billion. I think before it was less than 100 million or something. So there has been a lot of progress in terms of cleaning up our revenue generating agencies, and we haven't even begun to talk about the TSA. The implementation of the TSA, where 17,000 bank accounts were closed in 2016, and you had we have a yearly savings right now of about 45 billion naira. We're now nearing 200 billion since Mr. President has been in office, simply by removing that 8 trillion naira from deposit money banks and putting it into the TSA domiciled under the Central Bank of Nigeria. So I think when you look at the corruption fight, these are some of the issues you look at, and even within the Federal Civil Service, the Presidential Initiative on Continuous Audit, PICA, found out that there were 54,000 ghost worker entries that amounted to a yearly savings of 200 billion 200 billion naira in just ghost worker salaries alone in a year. These are the kinds of things that I think will stem corruption, and I think ultimately what's going to happen is that in this next 4 years, the projection is 25% more in asset recoveries, and that's going to be made possible by legislation that the last National Assembly refused to pass. Legislations like the Special Crimes Court Bill, which the last National Assembly just refused to pass. The Whistleblowers Protection Bill, which the last National Assembly refused to pass. The access to public officers asset declaration form bill, which the last National Assembly has refused to pass. It's now known that this National Assembly has agreed to approve those. I believe that once those are passed, you're going to see very significant strengthening of the anti-corruption institutions and more recoveries.
Okay. No matter how beautiful and proactive or promising the programs are, we have talked to so many here, we can't exhaust it because for want of time. If we set timelines and we don't keep to them, will we achieve results?
No, not at all.
Because this whole next level is tied to 4 years.
Yes.
It might uplift the government, but if we don't keep the timelines, what happens?
No, not only timelines of elections.
But not elections, timelines of deliverables.
No, what I'm trying to say that whatever governments you want to run, whatever timeline you can achieve, unless you institutionalize what you achieve, then it can make meaning. If for today you said you are fighting corruption, which is acceptable, that before the corruption is with impunity, the chief or the head is involved, so everybody is free for all. But now there is a stop to a certain level. So institutionalize that characters into the mainstream. Because there is no society without corruption. But the level of corruption determines your progress in terms of the level of delivering service to the people and taking people up the hook of poverty.
Okay, let me quickly respond to this tweet. What are the measures put in place by the government to safeguard the local government autonomy from being hijacked by the governors? This can only be achieved with a proper monitoring, else government effort may be a nullity.
Well, I think the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit is up to it, and I cannot stop commending.
So the tweet came from Angus BK.
Yeah, I cannot stop commending Mr. President for the initiative. You know, it is a constitutional thing. I had always been an advocate of capacity for local government, because that is the level of tier of government that is nearest to the people. See, people on the street, for instance, don't have any business going to the state capital, not to talk of coming to Abuja. You know, they want to see road construction, their roads properly built. Local government, by our constitution, is in charge of primary schools. So people, residents in a particular community want to see schools, functional schools, primary schools in the neighborhood, The local government is in charge of, primary health facility. Yeah. If you have those things, Nigerians are not bothered. They want to just a square kilometer radius, from their residence. If all these services are provided, nothing concerns them with what they are doing in Abuja or in the state capital. So the local government needs to be empowered and need to be secured. And when the president brought the idea of direct funding, for direct allocation to the local government, it couldn't have been better. And I think the safety valve there is no local government signing signatory authority can withdraw more than 500,000 naira per time. So it means that if you want to send out 10 million to whoever you want to send it out, you'll be doing it like 20 times.
So how will the governors not hijack it?
That's the thing. That's the security intervention. It is the valve there. The valve now is normally you go into joint account, the jack. allocation comes from Abuja direct into Jack. It is the governor that will determine how much you take, from that joint account. But now, the governor does not have a right, on who gets what. It is the local government chairman that will determine the disbursement of the Jack. That's what the NFIU is doing. And then the NFIU has its eye now clearly on the fund. If you withdraw more than 500,000 in a day, the NFIU can call you, Mr. Chairman, can you, or the accounting authority in the local government, what did you spend this for? Who did you transfer it to and all that? So for me, it's a good one. But I think we should see, this is an intervention. The next thing is to have complete autonomy. And of course, increase what goes to the local government, because what they are supposed to be responsible for are very huge and they are sensitive to residents in the community.
Okay, before I give a last generic question, there are a couple of tweets here. Engineer Ndagi Ibrahim says kudos to all of you, and that you're quite enlightening. They are making us proud in the analysis. Power sector privatization must be revisited and be put in the right perspective to ensure affordable and stable power supply in the country. And the next one says, El Beto, I am so impressed about the panelists. So, but I used to say this, if you set up a football match and the game starts, the entire stadium is empty, it will be very exciting, right?
Of course.
And if you bring in all the scientific innovations, spend all the money on election day, the umpire goes to all the polling units and the electorate do not turn up. I can be sure there will be no election. So in all this, what attitude should Nigerians be putting up, given the new picture we have in the next level agenda? Let me start with you. The people.
Activism. The realization of the office of the citizen. Let each Nigeria know that he or she is a stakeholder in the Nigerian project, and it starts from the from the ward, because these are political units. The average Nigerian should be interested in what happens in the immediate environment. If you are not, you don't need to look at Abuja or even your state capital for redemption. Your redemption is nearest to you, your local government. And the most important thing is you must grow the capacity to call to account anybody that is representing you. If you are voted or if you are voted for a member of parliament, that parliamentarian must have a constituency office, in your constituency. You must be able to identify that constituency office and be able to also drop questions. Insist that that person that represents you must come from time to time to deliver and address you on what happened from where he's representing you.
Okay.
Thank
you. Prof.
Nigeria is a signatory to African Fair Review Mechanism. Therefore, to hold people accountable is the most essential thing that we should practice. And one of the things that I think government should focus more is security, production, and human capital. These three things, if they can focus on it and indeed institutionalize some of those things, I'm sure the sky is our limit.
Okay, Ajuna?
Thank you. Well, first of all, none of this operation that is Nigerian democracy is possible without our people. Mr. President himself is a result, he is a function of the input of every Nigerian, whether they are poor, rich, whether they're Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, any of the other minorities. So everybody matters. And I think one of the most important things here is that we want to be held to account. I take particular pleasure from the fact that I serve the Nigerian people through the office of the president and the office of the vice president under two men who will never call me into their office and sit me down and say, Ajuri, I want you to go out there and I want you to deceive people. Or, Ajuri, I want you to paint white black or paint black white. They will never do that. I can't speak for former heads of state. I can't speak for former administrations. But these are two men of integrity, two men who are honest, and I'm honored to work for them, and I'm honored to work on their behalf for the Nigerian people. And ultimately, it comes down to the willingness of our people to, like my friend Nii said, contribute their quota to the development of our nation.
Before we wrap up, I almost forgot this. Gender.
Yeah.
The next level agenda.
Yeah.
Very, very important here.
Yeah, very important.
And already, somehow we are guilty. Gender. Just
it's, I think we need to keep pushing women. The truth of the matter is, if we want to allow the natural process to continue, the gap has been so much. So there should be a consensus policy to push women, to bridge the gap, and going forward, it starts from the family, If the husband is not understanding of the capacity and the potentials of the woman, it is an infliction, on her moving upward. But there should be policies, like political party policies, where there are waivers, for women, purchase of office forms, There should also be some form of rebates, for school fee, for instance, So I think we should come up with policies that will be able to bridge, the deficits that tradition and culture more or less had pushed women. And when I say women, I'm using it generically here, the girl child, and of course the women, and of course even the aged ones. We are doing much. We have been doing much. I mean, I can track what government has been doing, but I still believe that, yes, going forward, there should be a consensus policy, to drive
okay.
that.
I must say, before we wrap up, we must say that Ajuri is the youngest among us here, and is in government. So what work do you have for the Nigerian youth?
Well, I think mainly on just understanding that we are not just the future, but the present, that we matter. We matter a lot. And ultimately, if we don't allow ourselves to be used by self-interested politicians, then we can actually galvanize around a common agenda that can uplift all of us out of poverty. That includes the elderly, the middle-aged, and the youths. I would say this. I think so much emphasis is placed on who is in office, who's out of office. I see Nigerian youths out of political office, out of public administration, who are making tremendous impact. Look at Sheun Onibide of Budget, or Hamzat Lawal of Follow the Money, or my friend Sanusi Ohiare, who's an executive director even in public office for the Rural Electrification Agency, and the strides that are taking place under a young MD in the same agency. I think there's dynamism both in and outside of public service, and if we harness that, whether it's in the private sector or public sector, we are going to, Nigeria is a gifted nation. If we harness it, we can compete favorably with any other nation's best in any field. I have no doubt about it.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, from the beginning, it's been expectation, and for the ministers who are there to work with Mr. President as a team to deliver on the next level agenda within the vision and the mission, within timelines. Hope it's not lost. Well, I must say thank you to everybody who took part in this program. For those who sent in tweets, there were a huge number of tweets. We could not take all. So don't give up. We can always take your tweet in subsequent programs. And also for our callers, for those whose calls could not pull through, you keep trying next time. Well, gentlemen, starting from me, it was nice having you, me, Akinziju.
A pleasure.
Chairman,
thanks so much.
Okay, and Professor Mohammed Mutaka, it was nice having you on Tuesday Live. Last but not least, Ajuri Ngalale, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs.
It's been a great pleasure.
Okay. On behalf of all of us that made it happen, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.